Hello and a very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you're here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter to get incisive content. The theme for this week, of course, is a vision for a new Bharata. The Bharata First team is also running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me. The program is called Hot Seat. Details are all in the description of this video. There is also a contribution link for those who would like to contribute. Do come forward and show your love and support because I need it now more so than ever. All right, then the Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that Rohingya refugees detained in Jammu shall not be deported to Myanmar without following the prescribed procedure. Now, bench headed by Chief Justice of India S.A. Bobde delivered its order on a plea filed by Rohingya refugee through advocate Prashant Bhushan. The plea had stated that these refugees have been illegally detained and jailed in Jammu and face deportation back to Myanmar following verification by their embassy. Now, referring to reports of their imminent deportation, the plea had said that this goes against India's commitment to refugee protection and its obligations against refouling refugees to a place where they face persecution and is a violation of Article 21 rights of all Rohingya persons living in India. However, the top court's order also means that now Rohingyas can be deported back to Myanmar, rejecting a clause in the plea which had sought stalling of deportation process and providing refugee cards to Rohingyas. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the issue of the detained Rohingya, matters of internal security, and refugee rules. Joining me on the program today are SP Vaid, former DGP Jammu and Kashmir, Kapil Sankla, advocate of the Supreme Court, and Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risks Analysis Group. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Kapil Sankla, I'd like to begin the program with you first. Let's first understand and analyze, what the Supreme Court said really as far as the Rohingya are concerned from a legal perspective. Let's understand this issue.
All right. You see, the argument is twofold, and the genesis of the case was the refugees or the illegal immigrants who had illegally traveled all the way to Jammu and Kashmir. The question was, can the government pass laws to deport them or to arrest them? Is this somehow an infringement of their rights as enshrined under the Constitution? The Constitution gives two kinds of rights. One are to the citizens of India, and one is to everybody who is in India at the moment in the land of India, which includes Article 21, right to life and all of that. So the arguments were twofold. The arguments from the government was that they have the absolute right to deport them. It is not a religious issue. It is a political issue. There are political ramifications, and there is absolutely no reason why immigrants would travel all the way to Jammu and Kashmir. So there is also a law and order situation, considering that India has difficulty, has bad neighbors. The argument put forth, but the observations put forth by the Honorable Supreme Court was that the Honorable Supreme Court wanted to test it, one, on the principles of the Constitution of India, Article 21, and also the principles of refoulement. So India is not a signatory to the International Refugee Convention, but we have also stated, and this is not just in the Supreme Court, but also all the information that has been released by the government, that India has a past history of taking care of refugees. An example to that effect is that there are thousands of refugees and illegal immigrants all living from Sri Lanka down south. There are, of course, also Afghanis, people from Afghanistan who are residing not just in India, but in the heart, the capital, in the heart of Delhi. And all those issues are put in. But the sum and substance is whether there is an obligation for the government of India to release the illegal immigrants who have traveled all the way to Jammu and Kashmir, whether it is a law and order situation or whether it's a geopolitical situation, and what would be the rights of illegal immigrants living in India in the light of Article 21 that protects all the people who are in the land of India at any given moment of time.
Absolutely. I think those are some very valid points that you've made. Let me take the discussion forward now. Mr. Ved, let's talk about this from an administrative point of view, from an internal security point of view. How would you look at it? What are your thoughts?
See, as far as law and order and internal security is concerned, India has always been taking a lot of illegal immigrants. In fact, my co-panelist was mentioning illegal immigrants from Sri Lanka and Afghanistan. I would mention here the biggest number of illegal immigrants came from Bangladesh. I think in crores, and some of them spread all over India, and even in Delhi, you see most of the people, your domestic help, they are illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. See, the threat they pose coming to Rohingyas, see, J&K is a border state, and you have issues of Kashmir versus Jammu here, Kashmir being majority Muslim and Jammu being majority Hindu, and here it takes communal overtones. People here in Jammu feel that the erstwhile rulers here have deliberately held them here in Jammu to affect the the demography of Jammu region. This is general feeling, right or wrong. That is a different question, but it has other aspects of a problem. We have come across some of the cases where Rohingyas have been used by our enemy across by ISI in subversive activities, criminal activities of the sort like burglary and other things, begging. So they are resorting to all sort of these things, and if they openly mix up in the society, these are the problems which will emerge. So that is why the need for keeping them in a containment. They have their right of life, I agree, but that can be ensured in a containment zone where they could be kept, and they are given food and whatever other amenities for survival are required, but they should not be mixing with the general population. It leads to a lot of internal security issues and internal disturbances within the country. J&K being a border state has its own implications, but I believe thousands of them are living in other parts of the country also, particularly in northern areas of India. So what I read in the newspaper, I have not seen in detail the Supreme Court order, but what I read in the paper, that a due process of law should be followed for the deportation. Government of India has its right to deport them, but a proper due process of law should be followed. And I think India should not be a country where whoever wants to come and merge here, I think it ultimately eats away the opportunities of job, of the growing economy, the opportunity it offers to its youth. Ultimately, illegal immigrants from all neighboring countries come and land up here. It creates problems for our upcoming generation. So we must have a very clear-cut policy of identifying all such illegal immigrants and keeping them in containment zones, like what you see in Bangladesh has done. They have a separate area earmarked, and they have built up areas there where all Rohingyas have been kept. As and when their government agrees to take them back, so they would be taken and deported. But till then, they are not allowed to merge with the population. That is what is happening in India. I think that poses a big threat, and we need to take measures to check this.
Absolutely. All right. So, Suhas Chakma, you heard both the other panelists out before you. Let's talk about this from a refugee point of view, from the Rohingya point of view, and how do we look at it from that perspective? And do you believe that something needs to be done?
See, what needs to be done is basically to have a law where you could make a distinction between an illegal immigrant and somebody who is seeking refuge. And unless you have the law to determine who is an illegal immigrant and who is a refugee, then you are going to put everybody in the same basket. And that's where the problem arises. And in fact, if you look at the Supreme Court judgment, we are talking about Article 21. Article 21 relates to right to life, and right to life will include the right not to be subjected to torture. Now, if a Rohingya is repatriated back to Myanmar, it's sure and certain that that person is going to be subjected to torture. So now, is the Supreme Court going to allow or deport somebody knowing fully well that they are going to be executed, they are going to be tortured, and Myanmar has a record. So we have a policy which is actually based on exigencies of situation. So you have from Myanmar thousands of refugees who have come to Mizoram, the Chin refugees. Chin refugees pose the biggest threat to internal security with respect to your Kaladan port. Just because Mizoram is standing up, so you are not saying anything. But if it is a Rohingya refugee, then of course you are saying that we will deport them. Deport them where? Deport them only if Myanmar accepts. No? Myanmar will not accept them because the primary basis of Myanmar with respect to the Rohingyas is that they are not citizens of our country. So they are no man's land. So, and if you look at Bangladesh, Chakmas know Bangladesh. 50% of the Rohingya populations are outside the camps. Whatever 1.1 million people are in the camps, that's nothing. 50% or more than people in the camp are outside the camps. And they have been coming for years. And if you look at Myanmar, see, the problem hasn't started today. The problem started in 1963. The government of Myanmar had overthrown about 300,000 Indian origin people. And in Janakpuri and Bikaspuri, you will find these Indians who have been overthrown by the Myanmar government. You had not stood up at that point of time. So I was trying to say that there is no society which is free from certain elements who are involved in criminal activities. So we have to make a distinction between those who are criminals, who are involved in criminal activities, and those who are innocent and who can be persecuted by the government of Myanmar. Then take a decision based on that, and that can be decided only if you examine case by case basis. Because we talk about internal security, the citizens of this country, including the Naxalites who are citizens of this country, they pose no less threat than an outsider. So we have to take, case by case basis. So the biggest problem is we do not have a law to say who is a refugee, who is not a refugee. So we have a situation, if the Hindus come, they are very much welcome, despite the fact that it creates a new set of conflicts in the Northeast, and where all the tribals feel absolutely, fearful of being outnumbered by the people who are coming from Bangladesh. Because if people are coming from Bangladesh, it's not the Muslims. It's the Hindus who are facing persecution. And for a tribal in the Northeast, it makes no difference. So that's why I'm saying, you need to have a policy so that it's based on equality and rule of law, not based on the preference of somebody.
Some valid points there being made by Suhas Chakma. Kapil, I'd like to take those points forward with you and also take a point that Mr. Ved was making earlier about how the Supreme Court has said that due process of law should be followed. What is that due process of law? One, do we need a refugee policy? Number two, to deal with this, in a way where we look at it from a holistic perspective? And three, why is it that we are looking at it, from a perspective where there is no overarching policy, but we are only doing what is convenient to us, is what Suhas Chakma is suggesting.
I do not agree with Mr. Chakma on one point, and very strongly so. It is very unfortunate when we polarize a political issue into and convert it into a religious issue. It isn't about a Hindu, it isn't about Muslim, it isn't about Christian, it isn't about any of that. It is only about the security of India. Well, if religion was an issue, then Afghanis would not be in India. I mean, it's as simple as that. And you're talking about Afghanis who actually have a small Afghanistan in the heart of Delhi, somewhere in Lajpat Nagar. And you go there and you can see these wonderful, wonderful community that's actually living. And I remember this story about Parsis. When Parsis came to India, the story is that they were presented a glass full of milk to tell them that unfortunately we cannot have you here. And it seems that the Parsis Pujari put a spoonful of sugar and said that we promise to merge into you just like sugar merges into in milk. And they are practically revered in India. I mean, don't talk about respect. They have their respect. They have their unique identity. Mr. Tatas are nearly revered in India. It's not because of their money making capacity. It's about for all the philanthropic work that they're doing. Afghanis are living in India absolutely at peace. And you can't say that they're not Muslims. They're as Muslim as they come. So it's about political compulsions, and the political compulsions are three ways. One, it is unfortunate, but though you're talking about, you have to take criminals on a case-to-case basis. Here the issue is about radicalization. Here the issue is that they're managing to forge documents and merging into India as Indians. Here the difficulty is that more than 30 lakh rupees is caught from them, and it is not being used for their education purposes. It is not being used for their improvement. It is being used to, let me use the word, for jihad, for war against India, and for radicalization of their own community. It's unfortunate. I mean, tell them, were there relatives in Jammu and Kashmir that they went to Jammu and Kashmir? What was the purpose for them to travel all the way there? There has to be some checks and balances. The rule of law is this: if you're an illegal immigrant, even if you call yourself a refugee, if you're an illegal immigrant, there is a rule of law that you will not travel beyond the geographical space where you are, that you shall report yourself to the nearest thana, that you and all of that is the rule of law, which was not followed, but that was given a go by these refugees that traveled all the way there. That's one. The second is what the Honorable Supreme Court said, what Mr. Zved was saying. There are two concepts. One is called the concept of non-refoulement, which is an international concept. The concept of non-refoulement is something which is also guaranteed under Article 21 and Article 14. It is also available to non-citizens, though India is not a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the status of refugee. And it is that no person will be pressurized to go back to a place where he might be persecuted. The Honorable Supreme Court and various courts over the years have also laid down the law and have explicitly recognized this principle, and saying that that the right enshrined under Article 21, the right to life, encompasses non-refoulement principle. It is also available to non-citizens of India. And there are various judgments. I mean, I can tell you about the Delhi High Court judgment. There is something by Gujarat High Court. Supreme Court has said it. There is also the National Human Rights case versus state of Arunachal Pradesh. You will also appreciate, one more point, you will also appreciate that there are a lot of that we have political links with Myanmar, and Myanmar as a buffer is very important to India. It isn't as if India is going to pack all the Rohingyas and throw them there. Diplomatic channels are being opened. Diplomatic negotiations are being taken place. I mean, it is much better than having somebody stay as cattle in a corner than to open up diplomatic channels and negotiate better terms, and which is happening. But you will also appreciate that here there is a sect which can easily be radicalized, and where you have information that they are getting radicalized, and therefore India needs to do something to protect itself, which is being done in this particular case. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Ved, I'll just come to you in a bit, because Suhas has been wanting to come in on the discussion, all throughout. So Suhas, let me come back to you. Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say is that the whole dilemma or the issue of polarization, bringing the religious element, it has been brought through Citizenship Amendment Act. And the Afghans who are here, they are here from 1979. When the government collapsed and the Afghanistan was taken over by the Soviets, at that point of time, UNHCR, which was expelled from India up to 1971 war, was allowed to come in, and UNHCR has been allowing the Afghans to come in. Now, post CAA, if the Afghan Muslims are to come, they will not be recognized. So what do we have here? We have a situation here that many of the Rohingya refugees who have been arrested and detained, they are recognized as a refugee by UNHCR. That the Ministry of Home Affairs and FRRO or the Delhi police will say, we do not recognize it. So my only point is the whole issue of polarization has been brought because under the law at this point of time, if you are a non-Muslim minority from the neighboring countries, you are covered. And the NHRC went to the Supreme Court in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, filed by us, the Chakmas of Arunachal Pradesh. So the refugee law we have been following from day one. So if you are a Tibetan refugee, you do not pose a threat. If you are a Chin refugee, even though you are controlling the entire corridor for the Kaladan port, all the way for entry into Mizoram, and the government of India has not been able to undertake any construction activity for the last 1 year. It's either being hit by the Arakan army or by the Chin National Front. Now, Chin National Front has come into Mizoram. They were the first one to seek refuge before the the refugees who have come after 1st of February. So what is our response to that? Because Mizoram government said these are our Britons, we'll keep them. So whether it's Mizoram, whether it's Manipur, whether the government of India, we have a policy where if they belong to us, they can stay here. So the Sri Lankan Tamils, despite the fact that the Tamil problem in Sri Lanka has been resolved in 2009. In May 2009, Prabhakaran was killed. And from May 2009 till 2001, has one Tamil refugee been repatriated to Sri Lanka despite the peaceful situation? No, because Tamil Nadu is a big factor. So the refugee policy in India, irrespective of whether the northeastern states or the government of India, it goes by the preferential treatment. It doesn't matter who we were. So if it's Mizoram, they will prefer the Christians. If in some other states, I mean, they will be completely different. So, I mean, I think that's not what the rule of law says. That's not what equality is all about.
Okay, so you want to have a situation where we have an overarching law which is equal to all, is what you're suggesting, and we have to go forward and take it forward that way. Mr. Wade, let me come to you now. You heard both the panelists out before you. You heard the strong points that they were both making and very good arguments on both sides. How would you look at this entire situation, and from a radicalization point of view, and how would you strike a common ground between humanitarianism and radicalization, and is that a difficult balance to strike?
See, views expressed by both of my co-panelists are excellent. There's no doubt. Both the humanitarian aspect and as well as the security aspect or legal aspect. And that's why Supreme Court has, after examining, issued this order. My concern as a citizen and as a police officer, ex-police officer, now I'm retired, is that India should have a clear policy of refugees. On that point, I completely agree that we should have a clear-cut policy of legal and illegal immigrants who all can come here, who all can settle here. What's happening in India since 47, can you do this in a country like America or Japan? The moment you go, or Europe, the moment you go, you are immediately taken into custody, and then you are properly scrutinized, and as per their law, they treat you. Whether you are a legitimate political asylum seeker or you are an illegal immigrant. So my appeal to the lawmakers in the countries, let's make it now. So many years have passed since independence, and let India be not a country where everyone and anyone can come, and whether it, I would say very clearly, it has nothing to do with the religion. I completely support my co-panelist, Honorable Liar. It has nothing to do with religion, whether a Tamilian Hindu is there, or a Afghani Muslim is there, or Iranian Muslim is there, or now these Rohingya Muslims are there. Bangladesh, we are getting Muslims and Hindus both. Now, after the army's takeover in Myanmar, now Christians and Hindus are coming, Buddhists are coming. Fine. Irrespective of religion, your policy should be very, very clear. Who all can be given political asylum, who all can be entitled for the citizenship, after how many years, how they can be merged with the society. But till they are accepted as citizen, there should be a check. They should be answerable to the law of the land. I think the area where they live, let that area be designated place. Let police, local police, be informed of their movement. That is what the law says. If anybody who is not a citizen of India enters, he should be reporting to the concerned police station. But today you have a situation where thousands and thousands of people are in the country without any account. Tomorrow, uh, let me remind my co-panelist, tomorrow, what is the guarantee that these people will not be, see, they do not have any source of livelihood. They are more likely to be misused by ISI and your Paki friends sitting across. They are looking for such elements who do not have any source of livelihood. Bribe them with some amount of money, and of course, religion has been misused by many of them who get radicalized. Unfortunately or fortunately, belong to this religion. You can't help it. We are not against any religion. After all, India has as many Muslims as any other religion. But the probability of their being misused as a radicalized tomorrow as a suicide bomber is much more than maybe somebody from some other community. So that is I'm talking of probability factor, and I particularly mentioned why Jammu and Kashmir, because it has a live border with Pakistan, so it creates, let places be earmarked. If the decision of the honorable Supreme Court and Government of India is that they have that basic right, I agree. Every human being, a living being, has basic right in India as enshrined in our constitution. But then keep them in earmarked containment zones and do not allow them to merge with the population and create problems for your society. That is my whole point. How we should work towards a peaceful India.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope we work towards that, and I hope that we see more of this in the days and months to come. Since we are here now, quick closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with you, Kapil Sankla.
The best way forward is to open the diplomatic channels. India can't afford to have multiple war zones all across India, and diplomacy is going to win. At the end of the day, India's security comes first. Like you said, Bharata first, India's security comes first, and India first.
Absolutely. Raj Chakma?
I think at the end of the day, we have to have a law, as Mr. Baid had said, because if you do not have the law, then there is scope for interpretations or use or abuse the way one wants. But I think the last point is Myanmar is a government which doesn't listen to anybody. If they can get away by overthrowing 1 million refugees in Bangladesh and not a single one being repatriated back to Myanmar, I actually doubt whether anybody can be sent back. So the best way forward for all the people who are receiving refugees from Myanmar, whether it's Bangladesh, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, you have to document. Then as a group raise with Myanmar, because if India or Bangladesh or Thailand one by one raise it, the Myanmar government actually doesn't care about it. So that's why it has been following a policy where every 10 years you will have a massive massacre, 1 million people out. 10 years down the line, I'm quite certain there will be another massacre, then another 1 million refugees belonging to the Rohingyas will be out. And because, as I said in the beginning, it all started with throwing out the Indian origin Burmese citizen between 63 and 64 because they wanted to Burmanize the administration, and they were citizens of Burma. One fortnight, like Idi Amin, which Idi Amin did later. You go back, then where do people go? So it's a serious crisis which has to be addressed by all the countries together, not by one country alone.
Absolutely. And Mr. Ved, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
I am enriched with the experience of Mr. Kapil and Mr. Suhas. They both put across their viewpoint very effectively. And I completely agree with both my co-panelists. As Mr. Kapil said, I think we should continue our diplomatic efforts. You are not going to lose anything in that. I agree with Mr. Suhas that the present dispensation, the army, which is not sparing its own citizen in Myanmar, will bother hardly anything for these poor Rohingyas. But let's hope that international community rises to this occasion, and India alone cannot handle this. After all, this is a problem, international problem, and all the international community will have to face not only the military junta which is killing its people in Myanmar, but let's hope that in few years, a year or two, the political government, the civilian government comes there. Basically, Rohingyas, as I understand, faced atrocities from the army's side. And if an effective political government comes, I see no reason why they will not take back their citizens if the civilian government comes into power. And let's hope for the better future with my best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and sharing your views and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that we need a clear-cut refugee policy that puts Bharata first. We should not discriminate on the grounds of religion. Anyone can be a threat. All threats should be dealt with accordingly. We need a policy that defines issues like political asylum, rules for citizenship, and a way to legally merge into the society. Till that time, we should ensure that all migrants should be answerable to the law of the land and follow the due process that we have enshrined. As far as the Rohingya go, they do pose a security threat because of their gullible state. We need to address that at the earliest. In the meantime, we also need to keep our diplomatic channels open, work with other nations who face similar kind of problems from Rohingya, and build international pressure on Myanmar so that we can put an end to this problem. Once again, thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell icon and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles as well for all the latest updates. And you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. The theme for this time is New Vision for a New Bharata. Now, the Bharata First team is also running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me. The program is called Hot Seat. In the process, you can also improve on your knowledge and learn something new on a daily basis. So do participate in the quiz. The details are in the description of this video. There is also a contribution link in the description. For those of you who would like to come forward and contribute to keep this content alive, please do so because it will really help. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.